My dog Spot and I had just started living in my van for merely over a week, and I started wishing that I had done this earlier. But that came later. Let me tell you about how it all came to be from the very beginning. I was a resident of Pittsburgh with my own house and my own fancy car and all. Unfortunately, no immediate family though. I was living just fine without much worries of financial burden at the moment. Had a great job that I liked doing, and it paid well too. It couldn't get much better than that, now could it? And despite all of that, I hadn't been very happy with such a nice life. I'd always had a craze for adventure, and the stable, boring life here just wasn't cutting it for me anymore. It wasn't quenching my thirst for something more, something exciting. That's when I came across a bunch of folks posting about their van life experiences on YouTube. It piqued my interest, so I followed a few of those channels and began watching their videos religiously. They were living a very spontaneous and uncertain life that was surety in itself. It brought me immense satisfaction to watch people living their best lives however they desired. They weren't stuck in a single place or area. They could travel wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted. Some of them had even traveled between lots of countries in their vans, something I found really fascinating. And they had the advantage of bringing their whole house along with them. No concerns of rent or electricity, gas, or water bills. They could get those wherever they chose to. It was the kind of freedom that I had always desired. It was the kind of life that I had always wanted myself to have. And then I thought, if I want this in life, why can't I have it? What's stopping me? The answer was nothing. It wasn't like I had a wife or kids waiting for me at home. Hell, I didn't even have any immediate family left, especially nowhere in Pittsburgh. So why was I still suffering through the life that I didn't even want, just for stability? For norm's sake? Not anymore. I was going to have the life that I was meant to live, I decided. And so I set out to make it possible. First step, I sold my fancy BMW. It was a great car and I had a great deal of fondness for it, but it wasn't living on the road material, so it had to go. Next came the process of picking up the best vehicle for my foreseeable future. I went through the pros and cons of all the available options on the market, an SUV, an RV, and even camper vans. At the end, however, I picked up a conversion van and decided to rebuild it into my living space with the pocket of money that I had gotten from the car I sold. All in all, it was a fair trade in my eyes. It took me around 2 months to do all of the rebuilding and remodeling of the van. Those were some of the busiest 2 months of my life. Along with building the van, I had some other important decisions to make, including but not limited to taking care of my job. I went to resign and was ready to go on a remote job hunt, but fortunately, I lucked out. I was allowed to keep my job because they just made the post remote. That was a big relief for me because that was the thing that worried me the most, that I wouldn't be able to find work on the road and would end up jobless. I wanted a life just not being stuck in a house. I didn't want to end up actually being homeless though. And then the next big question was, what to do with my house and all my other possessions? There were talks of selling, lending, or renting out all that. In the end, my neighbor ended up convincing me not to actually sell my house just in case I needed something to fall back to. So I decided to rent my house in Pittsburgh and got rid of most of my things I couldn't take with me and that couldn't be left in the house. I gave some to my friends and neighbors and even ended up selling some of it. My neighbor also gave me one of his puppies since he knew I'd be on the open road for a few months. And according to him, I'd be needing some company on the long road trip. I thanked him and gladly accepted his generous offer, taking the puppy with me and naming him Spot. So finally, after those 2 long months, my van was ready to hit the road, and so was I, along with my new puppy. We said our goodbyes and got on the open road away from the hustle and bustle of the city of Pittsburgh. Now, after 2 months of building out my van and carefully planning and getting my hands on everything that I thought I would need on the go, I was definitely fully prepared for the open road. But that's when I realized a crucial flaw in my plot. I had not a single clue on just exactly where I was gonna go. Fortunately, that was the beauty of life on wheels. I could just wing it. So I decided to do just that. I pulled out the map on my phone as my puppy looked up at me, as if asking, "Where to next, man?" Let's see. I chuckled out loud at his inquisitive eyes. "Well, I've been in the city for so long now, so let's check out good old Colorado. Okay, bud?" The puppy let out a tiny bark at that, and I took that as his agreement for our destination. I put the van in gear, and we were on our way out of the crowded city and headed towards more open land, not looking back even once. "Woohoo! Goodbye, bad food and toxic smog!" I shouted out loud to no one in particular, immensely relieved and happy for the new chapter in my life. So far, the one thing that I was most pleased about was the fact that I was actually lucky enough to be working online whenever and wherever I wanted to, and not needing to be holed up in a small cubicle at my office job. It was refreshing and very freeing, and I had a great companion on the road. Spot would sometimes jump from the front seat and head to the bed in the back, and then would run up to the front with me and hop back into the passenger seat. It was honestly endearing watching that small creature going about and wagging his little tail, letting out tiny woofs in excitement. After hours and hours of driving, we made it to the state of Missouri off the 70 freeway. I pulled off at a truck stop for fuel and stocked up on some meals for the long trip ahead. I also got a few things especially for my puppy to keep him entertained while he would be confined in the van for long stretches of time. After buying everything I thought we would need, I headed over to the counter to pay for all the stuff and the fuel for the trip. Then I headed back towards the van. A truck driver passed me in the parking lot and stopped me in my tracks.
"Hey, man, is that your van over there with the puppy in it?"
he asked, rather jovially. "Yeah, that's my dog." "Yeah," I replied, rather bemused at the sudden encounter.
"I see you're stocked up for a long trip ahead, man. Honestly, it's good to see some people starting to get out on the open road once again," he continued on further, coming closer towards me. "Yeah, I just started the van life, and so far it seems to be the best thing I've done for myself," I replied, moving towards the truck too, sensing that the man wasn't going to just go away and wanted to keep talking. Suddenly, the man looked both ways as if wanting to check for someone that might be listening in, and honestly, it raised my anticipation as to what he was going to say. He leaned towards me and said, "I don't know where you're heading towards, but be very careful going into the western back roads."
He started a little conspiringly, as if telling me a huge secret.
"There have been a lot of folks coming up missing from that area. Sometimes their vans are found still running or ripped apart."
It looked like the man was going to continue talking, but he didn't get the chance to as another guy walked over to us and smacked him on the side of the head.
"Damn it, Jake! Do you really gotta freak people out with that crazy-ass story of yours?"
He admonished the driver and turned towards me.
"I'm sorry, man. This dude's been breaking my balls with that crazy talk too. Don't pay it any mind,"
he said, and then proceeded to wish me luck on my road life. Soon we all said goodbyes and went on our separate ways, but those words of the truck driver had struck a chord somewhere in me. I had come to a realization that I hadn't done much in the sense of security, and I had absolutely no way to defend myself if ever need be, except purely physical, and I had no idea how effective that would be. And after that bizarre story, I was really on high alert. That's why I decided to make another stop at the next road shop. There, I picked up what self-defense weapons that I possibly could. This ended up being a hunting knife and a can of bear spray. Not much, but still, it was better than absolutely nothing. After taking care of the safety issue, we hit the road once again, and this time I was more relieved and less worried. After some time, I had almost completely forgotten my conversation with the truck driver, and I was fully enjoying my journey to our next destination. After almost 10 hours of driving, I decided to pull over and take a few winks for a couple hours. I checked the map, and it showed there was a campground just 15 minutes away from my position, so I decided to head towards the camp. I pulled up to the campground only to find it devoid of anything else. The place seemed to be deserted, and I didn't even see any RVs or campers anywhere. It honestly gave me a little bit of the creeps. I can tell you it felt very, very spooky. I almost wanted to leave the place as soon as I had entered it. It was really desolate and unnerving, but I did not see any other option at the moment. I really needed to take some rest, and the next campground was another hour's drive away, and I didn't have it in me to drive that long again. I really needed some shut-eye, so I accepted fate and decided to camp in the campground anyway. I got down and started setting up my van on the lot. Then I started making us some dinner. It was mostly frozen foods for now, as I knew I needed to really work on my cooking if I wanted my road life to be healthy and hustle-free. But for now, a frozen pizza sounded like an excellent option. As I was setting up the bed after our warm-hearted meal, Spot started to jump up and down on the bed and began barking heavily. It was the only sign that something wasn't quite right, that something might be very wrong. What exactly? I wasn't really sure. I looked out of the van window to gauge the outside world, but I didn't see anything out of the ordinary there, so I just closed the blinds. Must have been a false alarm or something, or I don't know, maybe Spot was just excited? Maybe he was homesick. Or maybe he just likes the bed a lot? Those were the many reasons I used to convince myself I was safe and headed to bed, drifting off to sleep eventually. The next morning, I woke up and my sixth sense was tingling, and I could tell that something was wrong even before I opened my eyes. And then I opened my eyes, only to see the van door was wide open and Spot was missing. I hurriedly got up and walked out yelling for him. No response. No sign of Spot anywhere, neither jumping or barking. I was really starting to get worried, not knowing what was going on. Was there someone out there stalking me? Or was it maybe just some locals playing around? I couldn't really tell. I thought of hitting up the authorities when I realized that my dog wasn't the only thing missing from the van. My phone was also missing. I hurried to check all my pockets and searched all over the van. I couldn't find my phone, and I found another concerning fact. I was also missing my keys. Now I was really starting to worry, realizing that I had no way of contacting anyone or even getting out of there. It was really worrying, but I couldn't do anything about it, so I focused on calling for my puppy. Still, no answer. Reluctantly, I got back in the van and locked it from the inside, thinking that even if there was danger, the van could at least provide me with some sort of protection as opposed to being in the open air. After an hour or so, I could finally hear Spot barking. I quickly looked out the van window and sure enough, there he was. He was running towards the van as if his life depended on it. I hurriedly opened the van door as he grew closer. He jumped into the van and promptly headed towards the bed, hiding underneath it. Bewildered, I stepped out to see what the hell my puppy was running from. There was nothing out there in the open that could give me any clues, but suddenly, I saw something moving in the woods. Whatever it was massive even at first glance, as I could clearly see even the tops of the trees moving in different directions. I ran back to the van to grab my spray and knife, not sure how much help those would be, but still. I couldn't get to them quick enough, however, as just then I heard a loud crash from outside that ended up somehow moving the van almost immediately. I ran out from the van once again and found a large dead moose, half ripped open with its organs dangling all over the place right beside the van. I was practically stunned at the sight. That moose could not have just run into my van and ended up in such a horrifying condition. There's no way the impact would have been that strong to cause that amount of damage. It meant that someone or something had intentionally thrown that moose at the van, an already dead, mangled moose. I rushed inside the van once again, closing the door behind me, just wondering what the hell I could do next, as I neither had my phone to contact anyone or my keys to just get the hell out of there. Just as I was wondering that, Spot climbed up into my lap with the car keys in his mouth. Surprised and happy beyond belief, I took the keys from my puppy and gave him a big hug as a thank you. I jumped up from the bed and got the hell out of there, not even stopping until I hit the next state line. That was not a place I wanted to stay anymore, nor was I ever going back again. I still had no idea just what the hell had conspired there that day, or how it had all happened. There was no way that Spot had just opened the door from the inside and took off, and that too with the keys in his mouth? No, not very likely. There was definitely something else at play here, some other power that I hadn't been able to fathom, and I still had no freaking idea just where the hell my phone had gone to. All in all, I was quite dismayed at my first actual stop in my van life. I was hoping this wouldn't indicate some kind of pattern and would just become a one-off thing, that whatever it was, it wouldn't follow us to the next destination. I had no idea how true that fear of mine was going to become. In our next destination, it was going to be Utah. I had always liked hiking, so that seemed to be the best option in my head. We finally arrived in Utah, and as soon as I pulled up in the camping site, I breathed out a sigh of relief after the long travel. And right after I did, I was happy and ready to hit the hiking trails, so that's exactly what I did. I took Spot with me and left for the long hike upwards. It went on for quite some time. By the time Spot and I got back to the van from our 6-hour-long hike on the trail, evening was approaching. I was looking forward to just having a light dinner and cuddling Spot to sleep. However, my plans were thwarted soon enough. As I moved closer to the van, I noticed the back door of the van was half open, and there were marks of blood all over it. It was something I definitely wasn't expecting. I pulled out my knife, getting ready to defend myself if need be. Spot, on the other hand, hurried ahead and proceeded to hide underneath the van, shaking. I crept closer and cautiously opened the door, only to find deer parts scattered all along the interior, painting a very red, very disgusting picture. It made me blanch. I walked away to the side to vomit in disgust. Just then, I could hear something big approaching the side of the van. I looked up and saw the trees swinging from side to side and something very loud coming my way. I turned to run away, but I fell to the mud as the van suddenly started flipping over onto me.
No! Somebody help!